Hello?
Oh, hi, yeah, this is, that negative thought you've been having, and I just can't let you try and change yourself without a fight, so, go ahead and just turn the show off, okay? And, yeah, everything's still fine.
This is Blindsight with your host, Bill Lundgren, an AINC original podcast.
You serious?
We're not holding back truth. We're here to help you heal and become the best you possible. Here's the chair, here's the pillow, here's Bill.
Hello, everybody. This is the Blindsight program, and we welcome you. And the Blindsight is produced by the Audio Information Network of Colorado, and I'm your host, Bill Lundgren, and I'm pleased today to be talking about teens with Shelby Robbins, who is the founder of Antelope Counseling. And she's with us today to talk a little bit about the mental health of teens as she has experienced it in her organization. Shelby, welcome. We're glad to have you on board. So, I'm always curious to know how people get into a particular specialty. And so I have to ask you, how did you decide to focus with teens? Because they're a difficult group to work with.
Great. That's a great question. I guess I'll start just by sharing a little bit of my story. So I was involved in a relationship in high school with a young man who developed a heroin addiction. And we were together for about 5 years. And throughout that time together, he slowly started kind of devolving into his addiction. And he overdosed when I was in my early 20s and passed away. At that time, as a way to kind of process my grief, I started working at an inpatient program for teens. It happened kind of out of the blue. At his funeral, there was a program director of an inpatient program, and he came up to me and was like, "Hey, why don't you, have you considered, working here?" And it was somewhat, serendipitous. I, ended up working the night shift where I wasn't actually involved with the teens too much. It was just me putting myself together. And slowly I realized I had somewhat of a knack for working with teens. I found them really fun. I really enjoyed the sassy banter. And as someone who struggled as a teenager myself, I felt like I could connect with the kiddos in a cool way. So now I'm not actually a counselor. I'm not a professional therapist at all, but what I am doing is building an intensive outpatient program. So bringing together counselors who are really specialized in working with teens who are struggling and creating intensive outpatient programming for kiddos who need some extra support. It was, I think, like most people who are in the mental health field, it was not necessarily by choice. The mental health field kind of grabbed me, and I love it. I've been involved ever since, and it's been really, really meaningful for me.
Well, you certainly got some on-the-job training in growing up and being in a relationship with someone who is an active user. You can't, quite frankly, that's a lot more experience than you can get from a textbook. So you've got come in with some personal credentials. Well, describe your organization a little bit for us. So, and also how people get into the program, because I'm sure that. I'd be curious to know whether teens themselves actually sign up, or is the parent dragging them in, or, how does that go?
Yeah, so our program, Antelope Recovery, it is brand new. We are just getting off the ground. And yeah, I'll start just by sharing a little bit about the program itself. So the program is completely online. Um, it is a virtual intensive outpatient program. And for those of you listening who don't know, intensive outpatient therapy is when someone needs more than 1 hour of therapy a week, but doesn't necessarily need to be living at a rehab or an inpatient program where they're getting around the clock care. So usually for kids, that means after school, about 10 hours a week, they're going to be enrolled in a program. Intensive outpatient therapy is usually a combination of one-on-one sessions, family therapy sessions, and then group therapy. Our program, one of the benefits of it being online is that we can reach people who otherwise wouldn't be able to have access to this kind of therapy. So I'm located in Colorado. In Colorado specifically, we have these really large mental health deserts where kiddos, in order to get to outpatient therapy, they'd have to drive over 45 minutes one way in order to get there, which for a lot of people just isn't realistic. So by having online options, we're able to help kids who are struggling with suicidal ideation or depression or addiction, or working through some kind of big trauma, and again are needing more help. Our program is somewhat unique in that we're building in a lot of options for therapy that aren't just sitting in front of a screen talking to a therapist. We aren't a big fan of, putting the 12-year-old in front of the screen for 10 hours a week and calling that good. So we're building in a lot of outdoor therapy options. Some of our group therapy involves the kid on a phone call with the therapist while going on a walk outside, or doing a lot of where we have a lot of different animal therapy options. So a lot of rural teenagers connect with their dogs more than other people sometimes. So how can we have them engaging with their animals as a part of intensive outpatient therapy again, instead of being just on a screen all the time? So that's what we're building right now. We open in January. So we're really excited to open our doors, and usually teens enrolled in intensive outpatient therapy are referred by other practitioners. So usually it's not the kids necessarily initiating that they want this, although that can sometimes happen, but often it's teenagers who are getting out of a detox program in a hospital, or were admitted into a hospital for a suicide attempt or some sort of psychotic episode. So usually intensive outpatient therapy is something referred by other practitioners. Sometimes a school counselor might refer to a family like, hey, looks like your kid is drinking a lot at school and they might need some extra help. So let's get them enrolled in a program. So that's typically how people are finding us right now. And I'm excited to see what happens. I think my experience working with Gen Z and the younger population is that they're actually really open to therapy, much more so than other generations have been in the past. And I've been hearing from other intensive outpatient programs that there is a lot more self-initiated interest in getting support. So specifically with animal therapy, we're working with a professor at Denver University who's a part of the Animal-Human Connection Institute, who's helping us design specific therapeutic interventions that involve connection with an animal. So an example of what that might look like is one of the things that teens can really struggle with sometimes is boundary setting. and specifically knowing
Right.
what other people's boundaries are. So one way we can practice that would be with someone's dog. Like, have you noticed what are your dog's boundaries? What do they like? What does your dog not like? So if you start trying to chase your dog around, do they like that? Some dogs like that. Some dogs don't like that. So we can utilize the connection a teen might have with an animal, which is usually a very safe type of connection for a teenager, and engage with that relationship in a way to support the teenager. So, and support them in developing skills that we would be trying to develop anyway, but doing so in a way that might be built more into their life.
Right.
I think one of our big goals is for the teen to leave our program and feel like they have a lot of support in the environment around them. So we don't want them to be dependent on us. Yeah.
So you're utilizing what's available and working with the teen in understanding through working with something that's less volatile than the family, like a family pet. It's some of the basic principles you're trying to teach the kids.
Exactly, yeah.
I see, okay. So what about the parents? I got the impression that you're involving the parents in doing family counseling?
Definitely.
If necessary.
Yeah, so parents are a critical part of any teenager's recovery. Usually we try to engage the family as much as they're interested in being engaged. Family therapy is a mandatory part of the program. So once a week, whether it's a parent, a sibling, a guardian, we'll try to include the entire family in the teenager's treatment. I'm sure you're a counselor yourself. I imagine you have experience seeing how some types of mental illness just affects everybody. It affects the entire group.
Right.
We also have a family education program where we've brought in a bunch of guest speakers to talk about different topics that can be relevant for parents. So, what do you do if you find drugs in your house? What do you do if your teen is self-harming? How can you respond to that? And really giving parents a robust set of resources so that when and if something chaotic starts happening in the home, or if the teen relapses, which is normal and part of treatment, they have some support and knowing, what do we do about this? How do I go about this? How do I talk to my teen about this experience they might be having?
So you may talk to the family member without the teen being present and kind of advising how they can handle, or have the teen and the parent working together, or whatever option you think works best.
Yeah, so all of the above. I think when we can do a family therapy session and talk to them together, that's great. With some families, that's not realistic, and the relationship is too volatile to do that off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something we can work towards. Kind of the benefit of having an online program is we can really personalize it to each family. We can connect family with experts from all over the country who specialize in that specific problem, rather than a therapist who maybe has never encountered that before. So we have a lot of options as to how we can really personalize the program, which is exciting.
So in other words, your network of therapists are not going to be just in Colorado. They can be wherever you can find them and hook them up with a particular teen.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah, because you can run into problems with a counselor not being licensed in the particular state someone you have in Colorado not being licensed if you have a child in California, but you can draw somebody in California to work with that person through your mechanism.
Exactly. And, you know, the mental health field is really transforming right now. It's shifting. I'm excited to see how it keeps evolving. I know many states are entering into different packs. So if they're licensed in one state, that license will be valid through 10 states. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, we're tracking that pretty closely and definitely advocating for more cohesion throughout the country in our healthcare system.
Right.
I think we have a very fragmented mental health care system right now, and families and communities are really feeling the burden of that. I think there's a lot of involuntary experts in mental health right now because it's so confusing for people to navigate it.
Boy, that's quite a massive undertaking in terms of your goal. I think that's great. I think COVID has really taught us a lot about our need for more flexibility, particularly in the counseling field, to be able to reach out and to find counselors where they are and reach like the rural areas and so forth. So that makes a whole lot of sense. How many sessions, you know, is it a fixed number of sessions as you're envisioning it now, or are you saying like 3 days a week minimum, or 5 days if you think it's necessary? Have you kind of explored what's going to be the most workable?
That's again another great question. So one of the benefits, again, of being online is we can really customize it for each kid depending on their diagnosis. So addiction is a great example. A lot of teenagers who are struggling with addiction really benefit from having a group every day while they're in early recovery. Group therapy is one of the best interventions for addiction. So for a teen struggling with addiction, their schedule is going to look really different from a teenager suffering from anxiety. Someone who's struggling with extreme anxiety doesn't necessarily need daily group activities. In fact, groups can be extremely triggering and challenging for a teenager with anxiety. So, you know, with them, we might have a 3-day-a-week schedule that's a little more intensive rather than a daily kind of check-in. So, you know, right now, our clinical director, Ann Wen, she's incredible. I feel really lucky to get to work with her. Her and I have been working really closely on building out these some different templates of options for each of the different types of things kids might be struggling with, and figuring out our scheduling. So how we can have these different groups happening at the same time even, and have different kids on different tracks. Another maybe unfortunate part of where our mental health care system's at right now is insurance often dictates care more than providers actually dictate care. So some insurance companies will only cover care for a certain number of days a week, or for a certain length of time, depending on the diagnosis. So us having that flexibility to be able to not only work with what a specific teen is needing, but also with what their insurance is most likely to cover. We're hoping that can provide a more flexible and customized care that works better than maybe a more cookie cutter program that teens are kind of shuffled into, regardless of what they actually need.
But because it's virtual, you do have more flexibility rather than, as you say, driving 40 miles to get to a clinic.
Usually those clinics are understaffed. The therapists are burned out, and they only have so many resources to help the people who are there. And we're finding that having a lot of in-person programs, even if in-person is maybe preferred, it's just not realistic for them to keep up with the demand right now, because there's such a high demand for these services that having an online program like this, it seems like just having watched the landscape of the mental health field, that we'll be able to address some of these issues a little more head on.
One of the things that has always interested me is the family dynamics, because so often the teenager is reflecting a dysfunctional family. And, in other words, there may be an alcoholic in the house that what the kids getting into trouble is getting attention away from the parents who have problems. And I'm wondering how you think your program might deal with that, if you get wind of the fact that really the problem is more the parents. You have the mechanism to refer the parents within your system as you outline it.
I know for us, and I think this is one of the limitations of our program right now, at least in the early stages, is that we are really focused on teens and teen mental health. We will be able to refer parents, and our clinical team right now, they're great and they have connections to lots of different types of resources. So if a parent is needing support with their own mental health issue, we'll be able to refer them out, but we likely can't actually do too much to address them directly outside of family therapy and then family education. So family therapy, we can do a lot in family therapy. And sometimes, I've definitely had clients where their family repeatedly isn't showing up to family therapy sessions. And how do you tell a teen, like, wow, your parents not prioritizing this? What does that mean for you? Like, how are we going to process that together? And as a clinician, it can be challenging. We can't tell the teen necessarily, doesn't, it seems like your parent isn't treating you very well. Like, what are we going to do about that? How can we
tell the teen, you've got to get your parent to go into therapy.
Yeah.
You're okay if your parents have a problem. I don't think that'll go over very well.
No. No, we can't necessarily.
But yet that's often the problem. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Often it is.
There's some family therapists that won't even see the child that's in trouble.
Yeah.
What I'm wondering is, see, if the parent is the problem, if you have a sense of the parent being the problem, how are your therapist is going to have to find a mechanism, I believe, to get the parents involved in at least talking with the therapist and saying, there seems to be some evidence that something's going on here. Is that going to be a mechanism for your counselors to utilize, or ask the teen to ask the parents if they would, come on and talk with the therapist? Kind of like, we need your parent to help you, so would you have the parent contact us so that we can talk to them and see what help they can give, which may mean telling the parent there's a problem with them, which parents don't want to hear, but, I think that has to happen.
Yeah, I think you're touching on a really complex dynamic that can show up in treatment.
Yeah.
And there's a very big range that we see in the field. I think on one hand, there's parents who are too involved. They're over involved, who we can't get to take a step back. And for them, it's, that's great when we have that problem, because I get to, put them in our education course and send them articles and videos and get them into their own therapy and really support them with setting boundaries and letting go. On the other hand, we'll have parents with sometimes a completely opposite kind of issue, where it's more like neglect or, hey, take my kid from me.
Right.
fix them and then bring them back and have it all be okay. And, with that kind of dynamic, there's sometimes we work with teenagers who are fine, who don't have a problem. It's the parents
Right.
are, and somewhat of a neglectful dynamic. And often for us, we handle each of those cases individually. There's definitely been really extreme cases where, we have to call CPS, and it's probably, the kid it's not going to work having them live with their parents. Usually that's not the case, which is good. And, we can have some tough conversations with the kid and be like, we want to get really real with you. You don't have a diagnosis. You're okay. And what we really want to focus on is your relationship with your parents, whether your parent shows up or not. And, we have a very client-centered approach where I'm really interested in empowering teens to build their own future, kind of regardless of, maybe not regardless, but, empower them to create a life that's going to work for them. Whether their parent is involved in that life or not, or to what degree or not, we get to really support them in setting their own boundaries and stepping into an adult identity with or without their parents. And there's definitely teens where, they aren't a fit for the program, and we get to have that conversation with their parents of, we don't actually think your teen needs to be here. Maybe they need to sign up for a sport. They don't need intensive outpatient therapy. And it seems like the issue here is really the way you're relating to your child. And we can refer them to different resources. But yeah, I think you're touching on, a really complicated dynamic of the parent-teen relationship. More often than not, I see parents who've been blamed for their kid's mental illness, and the parent is feeling guilty and ashamed, and what did I do wrong? And I screwed my kid up, and now I don't know what to do. And I love getting to work with parents like that and to tell them, your child just experienced a pandemic and, all these other pressures that are really normal, and it's okay. And here's some basic communication tools on how you can help your teen when they're struggling. And here's how to set boundaries with them. Here's how to not let your child's anxiety run the household. Because no one teaches parents how to have those conversations with their teenagers, especially when their teen is really mean and sassy, because that's, that happens. And that's usually what we find is the parents are really well-meaning and really wanting to do their best and just don't know how. So we've been lucky to see that.
And one of the problems is that like you say, you use the word boundaries. Well, where do the parents learn about boundaries? Supposedly they learned it from their parents, but if they didn't, it's what you have when you're working with a teen, and this is often a multi-generational thing, and you can't, and so that therapist has to step in and help the teen sort him or herself or themselves out, so that the impact of the previous generation stops, and the teen begin to find a different way of operating, which is very different from what the parents learned, and the parents have to learn that. You're right, it's very, very complicated. And I'm glad that you've got the range of people working with you and the counselor, because it is such a complex issue that we're talking about. And as you say, having a parent blame him or herself, saying, I caused it. Well, no, not necessarily.
Yeah, it's, I think, a really great opportunity for compassion and learning and just getting really curious together of what's the best way we can work together to help both the parents and the teens step into a healthier space. Yeah.
So you're kind of looking at a class, for example, for the parents.
Yeah. So we have a few different parent education tracks, kind of depending on the parent and what they need support with. I think the addiction track is probably the most extensive of, what to do if you find drugs in your house. Do you call the police? How do you handle that? How to, what are the basics of relapse prevention? Having medication lock boxes. How do you make sure your medications are locked up in the house? That kind of thing. And then more subtle dynamics of what does enabling look like? What does that mean? What is codependency? How does that show up for you? How might that have shown up with your own parents? So there's definitely an education portion to it. And then right now we have it set up with a weekly kind of process call for all the parents with teens in the program where they have a chance to share about struggles they're having. And we found that to be really, really helpful for parents who just to hear that what they're going through with their teen is normal and to hear other parents struggling with similar things. And that can really help.
What do you think will bring kids into your program? How will you identify the, what is the underlying issue that brings, is it the parent's anxiety? Is it the kid? The kid self-refers, possibly there's some, and get a history or some way of identifying is there actually trauma in the family that nobody's talking about? That's a really tricky kind of thing because there are a lot of family secrets that are involved. And that's what your therapist is going to have will have experience in trying to deal with family secrets. Is that going to be more difficult doing it virtually?
Great question. So teen mental illness is interesting because it's invisible. You can't see it. It's not like a broken arm. So knowing how to know if your teen needs intensive outpatient therapy can be challenging. I think one of the things for parents to educate themselves on, and I'm not a therapist, so, definitely talk to if you're ever concerned about your teen, go to an expert, talk to your pediatrician, talk to a counselor, and ask them questions, and they can help you know how to guide that and what next steps you might want to take. It can be really hard to know if your teen needs help, especially because teens are angsty. It's normal for them to have big outbursts. Their brain is developing. Their amygdala is really large and they don't have a prefrontal cortex yet. So it's normal for them to have really wild identity swings and emotional swings. And we don't necessarily need to pathologize that. That's not a problem. And how do you know if what you're dealing with your teenager is normal teen angst or if there's an actual problem?
Right.
I think I have a few suggestions on that. The first is what's happening with your teen ongoing? Is it happening for more than a day at a time? So normal teen emotional swings tend to change dramatically over the course of a day or two. Your teen might wake up really depressed and not want to get out of bed, but usually by the next day, they'll have some other thing going on and their attention will have changed. However, if it's lasting more than a few days, if it's a little more ongoing than that, you're going to want to talk to someone. And that's true for any kind of issue you're noticing with your teenager. So that's one of the big things I like to tell people. Usually teens don't know how to articulate what is going on for them. Again, they don't have that prefrontal cortex developed. So they're having really big emotional experiences and they don't necessarily know how to talk about it. So asking open-ended questions to your teen, like, how are you, can sometimes not help at all because they're not going to know how to respond. So
right.
I usually recommend parents block out an hour or two, especially for boys, 2 to 3 hours a week of just unstructured time where you're together, whether that's going on a walk or a drive, volunteering, but having enough time where your teen can start opening up and unraveling themselves. They're going to resist it. They're not going to want to do it. Right. Usually for the first 30 minutes, they're going to hate you and, wish you were dead. And that's normal. Feel free to bribe them. I like giving teens hot chocolate on road trips, and that can change everything, or boba tea is a big deal right now. But make sure it's regular. Make sure it's a routine. Once a week, you're doing something alone with your teenagers so that they know that if something happens that's scary, that they're going to have a space where they can talk to you about it. Again, if a teen is struggling, they're less likely to tell you and they're more likely to show you with their behavior. So it's more likely that if something's wrong, their behavior is what's going to tell you something's wrong. Like they're not going to school. Their grades are going to start falling. They're, it's through their actions that they're going to be telling you something's not okay. But verbally, they're likely going to be saying something completely different. And again, that's normal. So if your teen's behavior is telling you something, believe the behavior, not their words. And, again, I always recommend talk to an expert, talk to a therapist, and they're gonna help you know what to do. Unfortunately, most of the teens who do go into intensive outpatient therapy get into intensive outpatient therapy because their mental illness went too far. So again, we get calls from people who've already experienced a mental health emergency. Their teen already had a suicide attempt, or their addiction evolved to a point where they are coming to us from a detox center. So we're usually getting teens where they didn't get enough intervention fast enough. And now we have to do the hard work of repairing their psyche after a mental health emergency, which takes months of time. So early intervention is better. If you're not sure, get help sooner. It's much easier to help a teenager before they've had a big mental health emergency than after. That repairing after the fact can take a lot of time and money. We know how to do it. That's the good news. In mental health and teen mental health, there's a lot we can do. It's just really expensive. So again, the earlier, the better. And hopefully that answered your question a little bit more on how to know if your teen needs IOP care and what are some things parents can do and should be on the lookout for.
And I think what you just shared is extremely important, because if we, as you say, teens are going to be very reluctant to talk about it, but is there a mechanism whereby a parent who's concerned about the actions of their child can contact either you or somebody to say, look, is this something that I need to deal with, just to relieve the parent's anxiety, or encourage the parent to follow through and have the child come to someone to refer to you for some help? But it's one of those things the parents don't know, the kids don't talk, and so people can fall through the cracks. And that's one of the things I'm sure you're wanting to avoid.
Yes.
And I'd like to, and too bad we don't have a printout of what you just said about the signs, or maybe there is available from you, something that parents can ask for and get mailed to them. What are the signs that they should be looking for? Or not should be looking for, but what are the signs that some action or trauma has occurred that need to be dealt with by professionals?
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, those are all great. So our website, anteloperecovery.com, we have a ginormous blog filled with all of this. I recommend,
Wonderful.
if you're not sure, scour it, read things. We've got lots of resources on there. You can also go on our site and call our company and talk to one of our admissions staff, and they'll kind of walk you through, they'll lead you through an admissions assessment and let you know if your teen is a good fit, and they can help you start to navigate our care system a little bit more. I recommend parents also talk to other parents. It's given the state of our teens right now, it's likely that other parents are going through this. I would talk to your friends, talk to grandparents, talk to people talk to your kids' teachers. Are the teachers noticing anything? Same with school counselors. School counselors are an amazing resource. They're going to be connected to all the mental health resources in your community. And they're likely going to have some really good suggestions on what you can do or not do. So all of those things, I would start, if you're a parent, just building therapeutic allies now. Just, hey, my teen or my child is a teenager. If something were to happen, who would I call? Who would I talk to? And just have those numbers ready, because God forbid something does happen, it can be really stressful. And if you don't have those relationships built, if you haven't had those conversations early, it can be really stressful to try to figure all of that out. I guess the last thing I'll say in response to that is we're finding that teens want to talk about this. We're finding that most teens really want the conversations. It's the parents that have resistance or feel awkward or feel like, oh no, if I have this talk with my kid, that means I'm a bad parent. Exactly. And I want to just encourage parents that, most teens will be really excited to talk to you about it. They likely have friends who are struggling. They've likely thought about a lot of this stuff already. And having a plan for, if something does happen, or if your teen is having an emergency, can they call you? And if they don't feel comfortable calling you, that's okay. But do they have a mentor? Do they have another adult in their life that they can call who's safe? And, write that person's number down, have them talk to that person, and build that relationship. Again, it's normal for kids to be resistant to their parents. I've had some parents do some really sneaky meddling where they've had coaches of the kid's team. The parent has called the coach and been like, hey, can you talk to my kid after the game? Or can my kid come in early and can you talk to them about just how they're doing? And I've seen that go really well for a lot of families where, you can set up allies for your kid in their life if you're struggling with communicating with them. And sometimes that works really well too.
So really what I'm hearing that there are resources within your program. If the parent is feeling hesitant, can at least go online and look at some of the print resources to try to think through what they're doing, and then perhaps feel a little more comfortable to call and talk to somebody, or the child can talk to somebody so that we can get some of the stigma out of the whole thing about mental health issues and about all the things that you're having to deal with. This stigma is what keeps a lot of people from going for help.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. So our website has lots of resources. There's really great hotlines out there for teens right now where they can text a chat bot and the bot responds and we'll just text with them. There's lots of really cool innovation happening in the field right now for teens.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I definitely recommend read up on teen mental health, whether that's our blog. Google is great. If you Google teen mental illness, there's lots of really interesting articles that will come up. And
maybe we can get people to focus on the word health in mental health as opposed to mental illness, which is what most people look at. So to reach or to get online, it's Antelope Counseling. What is the email address or the website address?
Yep. So our website is anteloperecovery.com. There's no www at the front. It's just anteloperecovery.com. And our phone number is on there. We have a newsletter. We have multiple ways you can contact us on the website. So please feel free to do that. You can also email our team at info@anteloperecovery.com. That's a great way to get in touch with someone if you don't feel comfortable hopping on the phone. But yeah, we're here. We're available to support any family, or even, if you're a grandparent and you're worried about your grandkid, feel free to give us a call and we can walk you through some steps you can take to start having some of these conversations, and we can give you referrals for what type of professional you might want to see. I know there's so many different types of mental health professionals. It can be really confusing to know who do I need to talk to. And, if we can't help you, what we can do is connect you with a care coordinator. And a care coordinator's only job is to help you navigate the mental health system because it is so complicated. And again, we deeply know at Antelope Recovery just how fragmented the system is and how families and communities have, again, had to become involuntary experts in the field in order to actually get appropriate care for the people in your life who are struggling. So our hope is we can help alleviate that burden as much as possible.
Trauma sometimes can be a change in the teen status, like a disability. And for example, sometimes teens, we're now able to diagnose retinitis pigmentosa, for example, much earlier than we could at one time. And your therapist you have some people who would be knowledgeable about helping someone with that kind of trauma, or the family for that matter, because the family has to deal with an impending disability, or maybe the child has gotten a disability and everybody has to adjust to that. And that would be a part of what you would be able to offer families.
Definitely. Yes. It can be with any sort of traumatic event or news about, especially for teens, because they don't have their prefrontal cortex developed, it's really hard for them to wrap their minds around the future. Like things like forever come into mind, where it's kind of like eternity, and it's really hard for them often to say, a year from now, where do I want to be? Or 2 years from now, what's my life going to look like? Or even 3 months from now. So getting news like that, or having a life-altering diagnosis happen, or, losing hearing even, that there's all of those events we would consider traumatic events. We definitely can support families in processing that type of information. we would definitely want to do the admissions assessment and make sure we are the right fit. Sometimes there are clinics that specialize, like within hospitals, wherever you received that diagnosis. Sometimes they might have their own support structures in place there that could be more appropriate depending on the diagnosis. Like I know teens with cancer often get support directly in the hospital. They don't necessarily need to go to an external intensive outpatient program. But that's something we would talk about, and definitely can support the entire family in coming to terms with a new reality and a new future. Other big traumatic events can be moving, even moving across the country can be really traumatic for teens, and they might start acting out and having really destructive behavior after a big event like that. So the great thing about trauma is our brains are really resilient. Trauma is one of the things we're most able to heal and fully recover from, which is really optimistic. That's really great news. Often for teens who do get big news like that, their ability to bounce back is really, really high. Again, if you address it early and make sure you get appropriate support at the right time. But we've I think working with teens it's a very optimistic group. They're able to integrate really big events like that in very beautiful ways. It's a teenage superpower of sorts.
That's a wonderful, optimistic note that we'll be ending the program with. But thank you very much for being with us. I look forward to hearing more as the program gets running in a few more weeks. And wish you the best, and we hope that people listening to us